dental services is offered on site as well, except for dental surgery. That's something that's kind of, you see the dentist, maybe they can help you on site, maybe they'll refer you out. Behavioral health department. Again, we have counselors, licensed social workers on site that can help with counseling, both acute and chronic type of counseling services. We have a psychiatric nurse practitioner, 2 of them on site that can help with medication treatment for depression, bipolar, any of the psychiatric issues. ADD is another one, ADHD, all of those types of issues. We can help on site with that as well. These are just behavioral health screens that you can take online yourself. So if you think you're suffering maybe from depression, anxiety, maybe you don't know if your child is potentially suffering from that as well, you can do some screenings online. Jump right online, take the screening test, and then connect with your doctor to talk about that. Sexual and reproductive health services, pregnancy tests, anything from sexually transmitted disease testing, all of that is done on site as well. Again, these are our other services on site. Insurance eligibility is a big one. It's very popular in the community. We have a pharmacy on site as well, blood work. And now I'm going to introduce Dr. Katie Collins. Dr. Katie Collins has a doctorate in nursing. She graduated from Vanderbilt, Nashville, Tennessee, 24 years ago. Prior to that, she was a nurse, a registered nurse for many years. And she recently told me that she helped develop a health curriculum for adolescents for Tabor Academy. So very well qualified to talk to you today about some of the issues.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone, for coming out. It's a tough night to come out on a Tuesday after you've been working all day. I now take care of some of your children. I specialize in pediatrics, so I see kids aged 0 to 21. Hopefully I can answer any questions you might have. I would ask that you save your questions for the end, and I'd be happy to come around and talk with you privately or answer the questions up here while we go. Does anybody, before we start, have any questions? Can you hear everything okay? I'm going to take that as a go. All right. So typically at this time of year, we get a lot of questions about what to do to keep kids healthy and in school and keep them from getting colds and flu and some of the other illnesses that are out there. So the first thing we're going to talk about are colds and the flu and the difference between the two and what you can do to keep yourself and children healthy. I'm not really good at transferring the slides, so if I forget, somebody raise a hand. Does anybody know what the difference between the colds and flu are? They look a lot alike, right? So a cold is something that's super common, usually not dangerous in any way. It's a nuisance. You can keep going to work, you can keep going to school. The likelihood of you getting a cold is pretty high this time of year. One of the reasons why we worry about kids with colds and the flu is because they can't breathe really well. So we worry about their sleep and their eating and all of that. But the cold itself is not going to hurt them in the long run. Colds last 7 to 10 days. Does not require antibiotics. You want to make sure that if your kid has a cold, you're keeping them comfortable, well hydrated, warm, going to bed early, and eating what they need to eat. The flu is a little bit different. The flu usually comes with body aches, fevers, and those can be really detrimental to really little people. So children under the age of 5 and adults over the age of 65, we worry about the flu. The flu can also lead to pneumonia and wheezing, which can be really scary with little ones. So the flu, the big difference there is that it really knocks you down for about 10 days, and it can cause really high fevers in really young children. So what do you do about it? Again, there's not a lot you're going to do in terms of making it go faster or get getting rid of it with antibiotics. Antibiotics don't work on viruses. So a lot of times I'll have parents come in and say, I need an antibiotic for this cough, when in fact it's not going to help. So what can you do to help? You want to make sure your kids are really well hydrated. That means that they're drinking water, not sugary drinks, not drinks with caffeine, but water. Teas that are not caffeinated, warm broth, soups, things like that will help to keep the mucus and the stuffy nose and things like that loose and running so that they can breathe a little bit easier. Okay? We've talked about colds and the flu because they're really the most common things that we see at this time of year, but we have a couple of other things out there that are rearing right now. One of them is called pertussis. Has anybody heard of pertussis before? No one? Okay, pertussis is also known as the whooping cough. Have you heard of that? Okay, so whooping cough right now has been trending upward, meaning we're seeing more cases of it in Massachusetts. And whooping cough sounds really awful. It sounds like a terrible cough sound. That's the bad news. It's also highly contagious, which means that if you're living in a household with multiple people and age groups, the likelihood of it going through the household is very high, because when you cough, the droplets from your cough are going to affect other people in the household. What do you do about it? You cover your mouth, you cover your cough, right? Use your elbow to cover your cough. Don't share things with other people. Spoons, forks, cups, plates, even things that you use to wipe your mouth, napkins, face cloths. Pertussis is something that you'll hear about because it's dangerous for those who are under the age of 1 and those who are over the age of 65. How do you prevent getting pertussis? You get vaccinated. There is a vaccine. Keeping your kids up to date on all of their vaccines will help to prevent pertussis. The problem is that some older children and some adults have not been vaccinated against pertussis. So when we see that people don't have vaccine for pertussis, we see clusters of illness. If you feel that you need to have a vaccine, or you don't know whether or not you've had a vaccine for pertussis, or your child has not, you need to get in touch with a healthcare provider. And we can provide vaccines for pertussis. The treatment for pertussis is for you to get an antibiotic as soon as possible. It's most effective in the first 5 days of your exposure to or symptoms with pertussis. So if you know you have pertussis and you're treated right away, we can shorten the duration. If it's been a while and you've had a cough for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there's not a lot we're going to do about it, and the cough from pertussis can last up to 6 weeks long. And so for parents, that can be kind of scary. We're worried, like, my kid has been coughing for a month or more. It's okay, they will eventually get over it. It's not a reason to go to an emergency room. It's not a reason to be overly concerned unless the child is getting worse. If it's just the cough that goes on and on, unfortunately, we have to live with it. But it's key to get vaccinated against pertussis. It's key to make sure that those little people in the household and the older people in the household are protected, and vaccines are available to protect you against pertussis. The other respiratory illness that we see a lot of at this time of year, and again, it's dangerous for little people under the age of 1 and older people over 65, is RSV. RSV is relatively common and it's easy to transmit from person to person. It's highly contagious. It can present itself with a fever and coughing and wheezing. The unfortunate part about this is that there isn't a treatment that's going to get rid of it. Most of the time, no treatment is necessary. So you treat for comfort. With little people, elevate the head of their bed so that they're not laying flat. Make sure they're well hydrated. Make sure they're warm. Monitor them for fever. If they have a fever, treat for the fever. Sorry, I'm not changing the slide, am I? I apologize. So with RSV, if you're concerned about a child under the age of 1 who's having wheezing, they need to be seen by the doctor. It's not necessarily a reason to go to the emergency room unless they have a high fever and you feel that they're struggling with their breathing. Obviously, that would be a reason to take them to the emergency room. The last thing that I wanted to talk about is COVID. COVID is still out there. A lot of people think it's gone. COVID-19, SARS virus, it's still out there. It's still affecting a lot of people, and unfortunately, a lot of us are thinking it's a cold, or it's the flu, or it's one of these other illnesses, and it happens to be COVID. If you have an illness like COVID, there's lots of testing available to make sure that you don't have it, or you do. If you do have it, you should isolate for 5 days. Most places where you work will give you what their policies are. Again, we always think COVID is much worse for older folks and it's much worse for little people. Those of us who are kind of in between, although I'm getting to the older side of things, we're not as much at risk. The ways that you can protect yourself and your family and the little people in your world are vaccines. The COVID vaccine is available. The flu vaccine is available. Pertussis vaccine is available. Please make sure you're vaccinated and so are your children. A couple of things that we want to keep in mind, and I'm sure you've heard this multiple times: wash your hands. The amount that we touch, the microphone, the papers that I'm using, the podium, all of these things, they're dirty. You have to think about every single thing that you come in contact with, including your own phone, your pocketbook, your backpack, your grocery bags. Every single thing is dirty. Think of it that way. So that means that after you've been holding something for a period of time, instead of handing something to someone, picking something up, particularly food, and handing it to someone else without washing your hands, you're sharing all of those germs. Make sure you're washing your hands multiple times a day, even if you're just using a hand sanitizer. Hand sanitizers work really well. If you can put some hand sanitizer in your hands, rub it around for at least 30 seconds or until the hand sanitizer itself is dry. That would be most helpful. If it's still wet and you're high-fiving somebody or handing something over, then that's not as helpful. Wash your hands, and when your kids wash their hands, watch how they do it. If they're just quickly running it under the water, it's not doing anybody any good. You want to make sure that they're rubbing their hands together, soap in between all of their fingers, making sure they sing a song. You can do Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, the alphabet, whatever sing song you have that's at least 1 minute long. Same thing for brushing the teeth, which is a little aside. With small children, when they have an illness, I forgot to mention this because I'm not clicking my slides, but with small children, they should not be taking cold medicines. Cold medicines, decongestants, antihistamines are not meant for small children. They're actually not meant for children under the age of 12. If you have questions about medications and what to give to your kids for congestion or cough, please make sure you talk to a healthcare provider about that. Cough etiquette, I'm sorry, you're ahead of me, I'm behind. Cough etiquette, you cough into your sleeve, into your elbow. If you cough into your hand and then you touch somebody else, you're sharing those germs directly with that person. Make sure you're not doing that, and if you do accidentally cough into your hand, make sure you are washing your hands immediately afterwards. Dispose of tissues, don't carry dirty tissues around in your pocket. That's just a nice little place for those germs to be harbored. Throw them away right away. Wear a mask if you're sick or you're going to be around somebody else who's sick. You know, we've got to wait for masks for a period of time, and people don't like to necessarily be confined by a mask. But if you are around people who are coughing, you will get sick. So you want to make sure that you're wearing something to protect yourself against those people. Or you protect your people if you're sick. Talking about wearing certain layers for winter. Kids don't like to wear jackets. It's a hard thing to get them to keep it on, particularly if they're outside and they're running around. This is a hard thing to understand, but being cold doesn't make us sick. Germs make us sick. Is it a good idea to wear your coat? Absolutely. Is it a good idea to wear a hat? Definitely. Hats cover our heads. Our heads are about 1/5 or 20% of our heat loss comes from our head. So if we put a hat on, we're keeping that much more heat in our bodies. Coats, absolutely. What happens to the body when it gets cold is it shivers, and shivering requires a lot of energy. If you're stealing energy to stay warm, then your body's losing resistance against illness. So it's not the cold that's causing the illness, it's germs and things that you're exposed to while you're cold. So keep that in mind with your kids. Try to get them to bundle up in layers so that if they are out and they do get warmer, they can take one layer off instead of a big heavy coat, if possible. Hats, mittens, socks, always necessary. And going back for a minute about dress and illness, when your kids get off the school bus or come into the house for the first time after being at school all day, make sure they change into their pajamas after bathing, or change out of at least the school clothes that they've had on all day, because it's likely that other children are ill, have been coughing on them, playing with them, and doing other things. You want to make sure that they're changing out of school clothes and into something that they can relax in at home. With very young people, my rule of thumb to keep them warm is that if you're comfortable in one layer, itty-bitties should have 2 layers. If you're comfortable with 3 layers, they should have 4. So that's kind of a rule of thumb with how to keep kids warm. I'll let you take this one.
So just really quickly, we talked about kids and staying warm and dressing in layers, but you should check out your house as well. Walk around your house, make sure your windows are really tight. Make sure the ACs are out of the window. All of your heat is escaping through the AC. So you really want to check that out. Also, we have some resources right here. Doorways. Some of those outside doorways, entryways and that, check those. Those are very drafty. You can probably feel the draft when it's very cold outside. If you can feel the cold come in, then your heat is going out as well. So try to block those off with some draft blockers. There's some information up front here, some resources. Citizens for Citizens can help with fuel assistance, your heating bills, your electric bills. If you qualify for those things, you should really take advantage of those resources. I'm not sure where it's located. It is on the south end of Fall River, but if you want to take that information with you, and I believe we have it in Spanish, I encourage you to do that.
All together, dress, rest, food, all those things are going to help to keep us healthy. One of the questions that I get a lot of the times from parents and from kids, parents will tell me that their kids are not very good eaters, and so they want to have a vitamin that will help them to gain some of the vitamins that they need. Your goal as a parent should be to feed the kids their vitamins. It's so important that they get the vitamins from the nutrients that they're eating that are going to help to keep them healthy throughout the winter. Particularly things like vitamin C, which come from a variety of sources. And it's readily available right now in fruits that are ripe and vegetables that are ripe this time of year. So if you know citrus, oranges, even lemons, limes, put it into water, make warm water with lemon, and you have a nice antioxidant and high vitamin C warm drink for winter. If you add honey to that drink, then that now becomes an antimicrobial, meaning it protects you from bacteria. Honey has really good properties to protect you. Is there a question? Did you have a question? Oh, okay, sorry. So when I look at this, I look at the sources for the vitamins that we require, and it's really easy to get enough, meaning 100% of certain vitamins based on fruit. And some of the orange juices, if you look in the store, orange juice is fortified with vitamin C, vitamin D. It doesn't have to be fortified with C, but fortified with vitamin D and calcium. So if you have a kiddo, you're having a tough time getting something like milk into them, they don't like it or they don't tolerate it, get the fortified orange juice with vitamin D and calcium, and 4 ounces will give them their entire supply for the day. That's not a lot. So I encourage you to get the foods into them without wasting money on vitamins that you take. Because water-soluble vitamins that we take over the counter that cost a lot of money end up in the toilet, to be really sort of blunt. Because if your body has 100% of some of these vitamins, they're going to end up in waste. They're not going to get utilized. So we want to look at things like oranges, kiwis, peppers, sweet potatoes, those things that have high vitamin C and fiber and things that kids need. The vitamin D that we need comes from essential oils, healthy oils, things like fish, tuna fish, salmon, those kinds of things that kids hopefully will eat, but definitely a high source of. Also olive oils and essential oils that you find in seeds and nuts. Most kids like peanut butter and can tolerate peanut butter. It's a really good source for some of those oils. Fortified cereals. A lot of times we don't realize that the cereals that kids love, although we don't like the sugar necessarily content, have been fortified with vitamins and iron. So if they're picky eaters and they don't like to have a lot of other foods, the fortified cereals will provide them with the vitamins and iron that they need. So look at the labels and see that it says fortified on it. Nuts, seeds, grains, whole grains, oatmeal, things like that, really healthy, really good for them. And also some of the things that we forget about are what we grew up on ourselves. There are some flavorings that are used, some hot foods, spicy foods warm us up. If we're cold, if we're fighting a cold, hot foods are really helpful. Soups are really helpful to get vitamins into kids. A nice hot meal for them. You can hide a whole bunch of vitamins within a soup or stew or chili, and you get a lot of really hearty bang for your buck, I guess, out of that. If you are getting the vitamins that you need, then you're fighting the colds and you're fighting the flu and you're keeping yourself healthy. There are some community resources available through, the WIC program that is at Health First. Recipes, things like that. If you go online and you can look up recipes, crock pot recipes, stew recipes, things like that, you'll find that, it's helpful. When you're looking at hydrating, a lot of times I talk to folks about hydration. Hydration keeps us healthy. It also keeps our skin healthy. The skin protects our body from germs. If the skin is very dry and itchy and breaking down, that's a way for us to get germs through the skin. So not just through the nose or the mouth, but through the skin. So hydration becomes really important. And what I'll suggest to parents is you somehow get the kids to take in about 64 ounces, which is a lot, of water or clear liquids, not sodas, every single day. And if they're sick, coughing all the time, they're coughing up fluids. So they need to have even more than that 64 ounces. For an adult, if you weigh 150 pounds, you should have about 2/3 of your body's weight in water every day. So if I weigh 150, I need 100 ounces of water a day, and that's when I'm healthy. So if you think about how important that is, and it will help with the hair, it will help with the skin, so that you don't have breakdowns and don't allow the germs in that way. I think I'm on to the next one, yes? Okay. Did you want to talk about that? Okay. One of the ways that we can keep kids happy as well as healthy is to pay attention to them and give them cuddles and love and closeness. Kids are looking to us to make sure that they feel safe, they feel comfortable, they feel warm, they feel taken care of. If we're constantly distracted by what we need to do, we all have busy lives, working sometimes 2 or 3 jobs, running around, take a minute just to give a little hug and make sure that they know that you're there for them. Kids learn from watching us, so if we're always on our phone, if we're always looking at somebody else, if we're giving them a hand to turn them away, that doesn't build trust for them. And then they become that way. And we end up looking and saying, why are they so cold? Why are they so turned away from me? Why don't they talk to me? And that's part of the reason. We talk about sleep a lot, and sleep is restorative. If you've ever been without sleep, you know it can actually make you feel a little cuckoo, right? You need to get enough sleep. Do you know how many hours of sleep a child needs? Let's say elementary school age child. How many hours of sleep do they need? Does anyone know? Yes? 10. Higher, lower, anybody? Who said lower? Yeah, 9. Elementary school age children don't need as much sleep as I do, I can tell you that. They need about 8 or 9 hours of sleep. Elementary school age kids are growing, but they're not growing as rapidly as they were when they were toddlers. And they're not growing as rapidly as they will when they're adolescents. How many hours of sleep do adolescents need? About 10 or 12. The unfortunate part about that is they want to go to bed at 1 a.m. and get up at 1 p.m. And that doesn't work out for the school schedule. So what we want to do is to set them up so that they have really healthy habits. The kids in elementary school should be going to bed and falling asleep within about 15 or 20 minutes after they go to bed. That's a normal amount of falling asleep time. How can you help them fall asleep? Does anybody have trouble putting their kids to bed? Nobody? That's awesome. So, kids should be going to bed with no computer, no phone, no TV, no iPad, no nothing, no screens. You need to shut screens down about 45 minutes to an hour before you want your child to be asleep. This is really important, not just for falling asleep, but for quality of sleep. And this is true of adults too, by the way. So those of you who have your phone and you watch Instagram until your eyes closed and your head bobs when you're going to sleep at night, you're probably not getting a good night's sleep. Kids need to have some downtime and the ability to unwind, and that means that the screens go away, all of them. And when the screens get shut down, that's the time to make the bedtime start. We brush our teeth, we wash our face, we make sure that our beds are comfy and cozy, and we dim the lights, maybe there's quiet music. There should always be a story, whether it's spoken or read to the child, or some singing, some drawing, a puzzle, something that doesn't require a screen. Once they've had that downtime, you want to make sure that they're going to bed somewhat awake, so that they learn to fall asleep on their own. If we're putting them to bed and they're watching TV or YouTube or whatever it is on the screen in their beds, they might fall asleep, but the brain stays connected. And the brain continues to play out whatever it was that they were watching beforehand, which means they're in a very light level of sleep, and they can wake up cranky, and they wake up distracted, or they have nightmares, or they walk in their sleep, or they talk in their sleep. So it's really important for everybody, not just children, but for everybody, and particularly for teenagers, because they're not getting enough sleep. And they'll say, I don't know what to do. They're staying up all night. And I say, take the phone away. They hate me when I say that, but it's a hard thing to do with a teenager. Take the phone away. Phones should be put someplace else. They should be given to an adult. They should be charging on a charger in the kitchen while you're asleep in your bedroom, someplace where you're not going to hear the little buzz, you're not going to see the light come on, you're not going to be worried at 2 a.m. who texted you. God knows who would be doing that at 2 a.m. But it makes a huge difference in an adolescent's sleep pattern if they don't have their phones when they go to bed. And they need to live by that every single day. So not just during the school week, but on the weekends as well. We all should go to bed at the same time every day and get up at the same time every day. It doesn't always happen that way because there's something to do on the weekends that we stay up later. But very often, particularly elementary school kids, even if they do stay up late, they don't sleep late. So they're off their pattern and they haven't had enough sleep, and you start Monday morning overtired. All right. I did not know until this week that Fall River was a cell phone-free school. I was really happy to hear that. I think that cell phones affect the self-esteem of many kids, particularly junior high and high school, so I was happy to see that. This is some of the foods that we started to hit on before, but I just want to talk about it again. There's a lot of practices, culturally and otherwise, that work to help us with our immune systems, to build our immune system, and some of them are listed here, fairly inexpensive, used a lot in cooking for a lot of different people. Go back to this. Kids want to have what I call white food. White foods include foods like pizza, macaroni, pasta, rice, bread, bagels, English muffins, those kinds of foods that are delightful, and we all probably like them, but they're nutritionally taxed. They don't have a lot to provide us. Unless you're eating a whole grain rice that you're mixing with black beans, red beans, kidney beans, something like that, it's essentially sugar. Rice is essentially sugar, so is pasta. So be careful. Give small portions of the white foods and large portions of these other things. And add to your soup some turmeric. Blend some spinach up. The kids won't recognize it. If you have trouble getting them to eat these foods, you can mask them a little bit in smoothies. Kids like smoothies, a frozen drink with lots of fruit, blueberries, things like that. Throw a tablespoon of peanut butter in with some of banana, some milk, some peanut butter. You have a really nice smoothie for breakfast. You can't get them to eat breakfast because they don't like breakfast foods. I say give them whatever you had for dinner the night before. If it's stew, fine. I don't care what they have. They just need to have food in the morning before they go to school. And I'm not sure the toothbrush. Okay. Did we have another slide? So, toothbrushes, we all get a toothbrush when we go to the dentist. And we might go to the dentist once or twice a year, hopefully twice a year. When we go to the dentist, we get a toothbrush. The toothbrush needs to be changed out every 12 weeks. And if you're sick, it should be thrown away and or sterilized. How do you sterilize? Put it in a pot of boiling water or run it through a dishwasher if you have a dishwasher. That will sterilize it. But if it's 12 weeks old, get rid of it. Viruses and bacteria can live in a toothbrush that sits in the bathroom for over a week. So if you have a kid who has strep throat, and you're treating that child for strep throat, and you don't get rid of the toothbrush, when the treatment is over, they will get strep throat again. So you want to make sure that if you're sick or your child is sick, you're getting rid of that toothbrush and getting a new one, or you're sterilizing it. Make sense? Okay, so one of the things that happens at this time of year, it probably happened for some of you in the last couple of weeks, is that some of us get pretty down. The weather changes, it goes from sunny long days to cold short days. That makes a big difference for many of us in terms of our mood. So what can we do? We can't change the light in Massachusetts, right? I wish we could, we can't. So how do we offset that? Make sure your children, make sure you have at least a half an hour in front of sunlight. Not standing necessarily outside, but getting even in front of a window. Having that light helps a lot. Some of us get up in the morning and it's dark out, and we come home from work and it's dark out. So we don't have a lot of time in front of the light. One of the ways to offset that is to exercise. So when you exercise, you release something called endorphins. Endorphins make us feel good. So that's another thing for children to do if they're also on that schedule. If they're getting up with you really early in the morning, you're dropping them off at school or at preschool, and they're not getting outside, that's a problem. That can change their mood. One of the other things to think about too is to get outside for a brisk walk, even on a cold day. The cold is not going to make your children sick. Germs are going to make them sick. Take them for a brisk walk. You might benefit as well. Make sure they're getting fresh air. Make sure they're getting exercise, and make sure they're getting some exposure to light, sunlight in particular. It really does help a lot with the moods. Seasonal changes, yeah. If you're feeling really down and feeling like you can't cope with it, then please, by all means, ask a healthcare professional to be helpful for you. If you notice that your child is feeling that way, sometimes when you say, oh, come on, what's the matter with you? You've got nothing to complain about. They know that, you know that, but that's not how they feel. So we want to make sure that we're addressing feelings like that. I'm thinking that there's something I wanted to talk about, and I'm forgetting what that was. Maybe I'll just pause here for a second, see if anyone has any questions at all about all of this information that I've given you. Questions about vaccines? Does anybody have a question? Questions about eating? Questions about sleep? You guys are too easy. We have some prizes. Wow. I do want to talk about sharing and the holidays a little bit, because we're coming up on a big holiday right now, and a lot of people are going to be getting together and they're going to be eating together, which is wonderful, right? However, if there is someone who is not well, please do not share food. If your child is not well, please don't take them somewhere where there'll be other people who could be really susceptible to illness and have bigger concerns if they should become ill. Hugging, we said, is great. Makes the child feel good, accepted, trusting. Hugging, not so good if you have the flu. So please make sure you're aware of that. One of the reasons why the flu, RSV, pertussis, COVID, all of these illnesses that we're talking about increases at this time of year is because we're not getting the sleep that we should be getting. We're not getting outside and getting the sunshine we need. We're not eating the foods that are fresh and good for us. And we're closed inside in large groups of people. Let's everybody get together on Thanksgiving Day in a small house with 24 people where somebody is likely to be sick, and we're sharing food and kisses and hugs, and then we go back to school or work on Monday, and everybody's sick. We see it every year. So be smart about that and back off and protect your children. If you're in doubt, put a mask. If you're in doubt, wash their hands, put a mask on their face, and don't share foods. It's a really hard thing. We see it every year. Travel, people are traveling. If you're going to travel on a train or a plane or a bus, take with you those wipes that are antimicrobial wipes, antiviral wipes. Wipe down your seat, wipe down your tray, wipe down everything that you're touching, coming into contact with. But the holidays can be really tough, and kids get super excited about the holidays, which means they're vamped up and they're stressed out. Even though it's good stress, it's still stressful for them. So you want to make sure that you're getting them to bed on the regular times. Anything else that I didn't cover? Okay. All right, so we have 2 prizes. And I think Jenny can speak to what they are as far as prizes go. A crock pot for healthy eating. So if you are somebody who would like to learn how to cook in a crock pot, you already know how to cook in a crock pot, or you just want a crock pot, we're going to ask a question, and the first person to get the question correct will win the crock pot. Oh, and you have to raise your hand. Is that right? All right, so now I forgot what our question was. Oh, yes. How much time should you insist on, no screens before bedtime? Go ahead, did you raise your hand? 40 minutes. Very close. Does anybody else have a guess? 1 hour. 1 hour. What are the ways, and I'm going to ask for 3, I mentioned a couple of times, that you can prevent or at least minimize illness? 3 things. In particular, flu, RSV, pertussis, COVID. How can you help to prevent it? What can you do? That's 1. Yeah. Cover your cough, vaccinate, eat well. Oh, she got 3, but I'm waiting for 1 more. I just finished. Sleep. Yeah. All right. Does anyone have any questions? I'll hang around for a bit if you do. Miss Jenny's going to start pelting you with t-shirts. Thank you very much.